Video too.
Oh,
Hi, friends. We are so happy that you have joined us today on All Faiths. I am so excited for you to have a glimpse into what I've known for years, the beauty and faith of my friend Michelle Loveday. Thank you for making time in your busy schedule, friend.
I'm so glad to be here and just chat with you. It's been great. I feel like we've talked prior to this.
Yeah.
It's been
Yeah.
good.
If we had the pre recording saved,
I know.
we had some juicy things come up, and we had a prayer right before, which we always do here on All Face. And I know that this conversation will answer prayer. I already feel that. I feel like Michelle came into my life and answered prayers. She's been a gift in my life. I feel like my whole desire to do work in the interfaith community can go back to my childhood, but also relationships like you and I have had. Like,
Yeah,
the identifying factors in the world are that sometimes we become very tribal and separated, and we gravitate to what feels familiar. And I'm so grateful that our friendship has gone over the span of time as our
yes,
families have
decades.
changed,
Yes,
and we have a lot in common, and we have differences. And I think that's the beauty of interfaith conversations, is that we don't have to just focus on what makes us the same. I do think we should celebrate what makes us different, but there is so much that brings us together. So thank you for
agreed.
having this conversation, friend.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So can you tell a little bit to our audience about yourself, a bio, what you do professionally, and kind of the dynamics of your family?
Yes. Okay. So, long story short, I am an educator of 22 years. I was born, raised, and educated in Ohio, outside of Cleveland, in a small town, international city of Lorain, Ohio. And that's where I was educated and got my master's degree and my bachelor's at Bowling Green State University. Went on to teach in North Carolina. And then I met my husband, who's from Wyoming. Um, and moved out here in 2005. And
So
so
we both live in Utah, for those that don't know where we're at. Yeah.
yeah, so moved out to Utah, still stayed in education the whole time. I've gone from classroom to literacy coach to principal, and now I'm at the district office and I run my own nonprofit for Black students to learn their Black history. It's just been a wonderful career. And then on my personal side, we have 5 children. And my husband, like I said, was from Wyoming and he was adopted when he was 6. So he was the only Black kid living in Wyoming, just
Which is
living
not, that's
in,
not
no,
easy stewardship. No,
not an
no, no.
easy service. No, but he had a wonderful family and he's part of that family that, and they raised him and he was raised Latter-day Saint. I grew up Baptist and non-denominational. I started going to a non-denominational church through most of my childhood into adulthood, and then went back to my Baptist roots. And so we kind of lovingly, when we got married, I said, well, we were Mobabs, we're Mormon Baptists. And so that Mobab has stuck. We've raised our 5 kids. One of the things that we both agreed on was going to church together was important. And so we would go to church every other week to each other's services. So first and third would be to my church, second and fourth would be to my husband's. But the involvement was the same. I still participated in a lot of the activities for the women called Relief Society. And then I'm the director still of the Angel Choir. And as we navigated both faiths for our children, we had them blessed, and they're doubly blessed in the Mormon, Latter-day Saint, and Baptist churches. And it hasn't been all easy, right? But it
Mhm.
hasn't been a horrible idea because I feel like we truly gave our children the choice of learning and growing and finding their own relationship with the Lord, which I think was our final goal for our family. So
Mhm.
we're still navigating it to this day. There's things that we point out, or there's um, ways and how we view what we do with our children, how short my daughter's dress can be compared to what my husband wants, compared to what I'm okay with, and so those little things, I'm like, it's not too short. He's like, it's too short. And
Ah,
so,
And
Yeah.
that might just be a dad thing too. Let's just be straight up. Dads and their daughters, right?
Yeah. So
Well,
it's
and you
been
know what?
great.
I have had the opportunity to be with you on a Sunday service in your church, and it is a beautiful congregation. It is a beautiful way of worshiping. It strengthened my faith. I feel like if if anything that people take from this conversation, I do think the way you and Brandon have navigated a mixed faith marriage and trying to raise children to have faith in their lives, plus on top of that watching kids become teenagers and adults, and then they're asking their questions about faith, like
Those hard questions.
it's hard. And I think every mom on the planet, if you are a person of faith, no matter what that faith is trying to navigate helping our own personal conversion, our spouse's conversion, and then our children's.
Oh
It
my
is
God.
a lot.
And
It's a lot.
I think at the end of the day, all I can do is pray. I
Yes.
think having an active prayer life will help you stay grounded in navigating all of that, because it is hard as a woman of faith to, a path that's going to work, but then you see the struggle and you see the questions and you see the doubt, and you have the foresight and the wherewithal and just say, just do this. But they have to find their own
Yeah.
relationship and they have to be able to navigate. And so prayer and devotion has been my rock. COVID changed even how we did church,
For all
and
of us,
for
right?
all
For
of us.
all of
And
us.
so I have to truly, thank goodness for the Bible app and the devotions that are there to help guide me. Um, and I have to remind myself to slow down and be that constant lighthouse of faith within my family, which
And
can
you've
also.
been that and you've been that for me as a faith friend.
Oh, thank
You are
you.
so good about
Thank
like
you.
responding to a text and praying for me and praying over me. And I do love that you bring up that one of your great tools in practicing your faith is your devotion, your daily devotions and your practice of prayer. What do you think, if you had to describe, what is one of the biggest misconceptions maybe about your Baptist faith?
Oh, and looking at all faiths, I think comparatively, there's this misconception that perhaps there is not a deeper study of the Bible. I
Oh,
I
really?
I think so. I think people are kind of like, well, and at least comparatively to Latter-day Saint, when I moved to Utah, for example, I think people were very surprised. In order for my husband and I to get married in my church, we had to have 6 weeks of marriage counseling with a pastor.
Which I love.
Yes, which, listen, everybody needs to do that. Faith
Oh,
or no
well,
faith.
that should just be a legal rule, not to
A
take away
legal.
agency, but whatever.
Yes, you need all the marriage counseling. But
Yeah.
I think it shocked people because, I had no qualms with evaluating and reading the Book of Mormon and looking at things and studying it. But overall, it's one of those things that people have to understand, that just like all faiths, there's different sects and supports, and there's the Southern Baptist versus the regular Baptist
Right.
versus
What would
being
be
a
the
Black
difference?
Baptist.
Yeah.
It's
What would be the difference between Southern Baptist and Baptist? What would be the biggest identifying factor?
they I don't want to be wrong. So if anyone out there that's
Oh,
listening
okay.
is Southern Baptist,
She's not speaking for all the Southern
I'm
Baptists.
speaking because I'm not Southern Baptist, but in my perception of, I feel like there's more preaching and teaching of hellfire and damnation.
Okay. Okay.
It's more,
And do they
yeah.
also have a standard around dancing?
Yes, it's very tight-shipped on no dancing, not
Okay. And
attending movies. I
and
mean,
that's not your Baptist faith at
no,
all.
there are some parts of it where, like in the 80s, every group is.
Don't you think every faith went a little
Everybody was
fearful?
we couldn't even do Halloween. I'm like, are you serious right now? Like, that's the devil's birthday. So we,
And Harry Potter, was there a strong Baptist perception of Harry Potter when that became popular?
it was. Thankfully, I was like in college. And so my mom had no control over anything.
You were
But
in
yeah,
the
it was
yeah.
one of those things, like there's prayer, like I did. And then when my mom finally did bend a little bit to let me do trick or treating or whatever, it could not be anything demonic or like witches or anything like that. It had to be positive spin. And at our church, like different pastors. We had Hallelujah night. And so all of our trunks for
Oh,
trunk or treat
yeah, same
are
at our
based
church. Yeah.
off of like a Bible story. So they could come and then
Oh,
the kids, which was great. Then the kids could go to each
I
trunk.
think I want to come to your
Yeah,
church for
get a
that.
little Bible verse in. So it's definitely, I think people are shocked here when I compare because I'm like, we're very God-centered and, Christ-centered and
And
heaven
Bible focused and
and
Bible.
Bible focused.
Yeah.
Yeah. We do Bible study. And I think having that as a child, I loved my Wednesday nights because that's where we did youth group. And it was definitely one of those things that now in my adulthood, when I'm going through difficult times, those, Wednesday nights, whether we were playing hide and go seek in, the church and the pastor's son did hide in the baptismal pool,
Okay. Okay.
but it's always the pastor's son, right?
It's always the it's always the bishop's daughter and the
Yes.
pastor's son, right?
Yes. But
Yeah.
those memories, that faith, those Wednesday nights with my youth group have helped me and supported me through those
As a
difficult
foundation,
times
as a
as a foundation, right?
yeah.
Because I learned how to have fun without alcohol or drugs. Or
Mhm.
I learned how to have good fun, and yeah, we still got into little things here and there,
'Cause
nothing
you were kids. You were
horrible because
kids.
we were kids and teenagers, but it helped support. And then every week we had a challenge of learning a Bible verse and having that structure within our youth group helped me as a parent kind of give my kids the practice of it. And they may embrace it a little differently than me, but it just that faith helps support me through difficulties within just lifing and sadness and death and
Mhm.
disappointment,
All the ups and downs, unemployment.
all the ups and downs.
Well,
Yeah.
I think you bring up such an important point, especially within the interfaith community and conversations that I really value having. And that is that like individual parents may have a hard stance on Halloween or Harry Potter or how to practice their faith. And that version of interpretation, it's the same within the LDS culture, right? Like there's certain LDS nuances that I know because you've been married long enough to Brandon, you know that there were certain families that were like, no, we don't watch those movies. We don't
Right.
drink Diet Coke. And now our university has Diet Coke everywhere, right? So like
Exactly.
there's an interpretation of how we live our faith within our culture as and also like if you go to church in New York City in my same faith, or you attend a Sunday worship service in Zimbabwe of my same faith, it's going to feel different.
It's gonna feel different. And I think the one thing when I'm talking to the kids, and I now, even with my daughters, I'm like, yes, you can dress up for Halloween. We trick or treat every year, but I want to hold on to still, let's not bring in the demonic part. We don't have to bring that
Yeah,
in,
I'm the same. I don't
yeah,
like the scary.
which is what throws me off sometimes living here because it's like,
Oh my gosh, it is crazy in Utah.
yeah, it's crazy in Utah of how much, like when I first got here,
Haunted houses?
the haunted houses that stay up year round and just the building is just for this month and the housing and just like the love of it. And I'm like, is it because you guys weren't able to drink wine? Because maybe, maybe if you could have a sip, you'd slow
I
down.
mean, this is what interfaith looks like right here, guys. This is what it looks like right now. But listen, you know what? Your brother-in-law lives right by me in my
Yes,
neighborhood. And
yes,
I'm going to say something. I did not love Halloween, not because of religion, but just because I don't like scary.
right, right.
Right. But I moved here 10 years ago and I fell in love with Halloween in this neighborhood because it's like the Norman Rockwell version of Halloween. It's like
I know.
happiness and little. So you're completely invited to come to our neighborhood. I know you know where it's at
I
on
do.
Halloween because it's just happy kids and like
Yeah.
families and like some farmer nearby dresses up as the headless horseman and
Oh,
rides his
ours
horse.
too. In our neighborhood
Yeah.
too. I
Yeah.
love it. And I think that's the magic that we want to bring in for
Yeah.
our kids.
Yeah.
Which is why I told my mom and my parents now they live with us. And honestly,
I love your parents so much, by the
thank
way.
you, thank you. She was so happy to hand out candy. It's
Yeah.
like the shift of her seeing this is not going to take over our spirits. And
I
And
love that this conversation went to Halloween. I was not planning on that, but I think
yeah,
it's an
we're
important,
gonna have to post it so it's timely.
I feel like it's an important conversation
It
for
is,
faith
because think
families.
about it. Well, and
Yeah.
think about, as we're talking about all faiths, right?
Yes.
With you're looking at Halloween and the viewpoints and how far you take it and where you take it.
Because some people get really offended.
Yeah,
People are
yeah.
like, wait, do you know what it means? Yeah.
Right, and what does it mean? The one thing that I have embraced better, that's tied, but it's not Halloween, is Dia de los Muertos, because Spanish is my second, third language, and studying and learning, and I know it's an Americanized thing, but I love the symbolism of recognizing those that have passed on. And so in my family, like November 1st and 2nd, we have a little jar, and I have little mini pictures of our family, grandparents, cousins, that have passed on. And every year, that's a time where we take out the picture and we talk about those that have gone before us. And I think that is what in our faith we need to keep doing,
All of us, right?
sharing the genealogy and the love of why we are a family, and the strong faith that my grandmother had, reading a Bible with just a third grade, academic study. Like, she was third grade reading, but she memorized the Bible, and sharing those things. When we take from a little bit of every culture and piece, it's important. But when we talk about Halloween, like the Ouija board, that was like a big no-no, right? But then in some other faiths, that's an important element. Or, when you're looking at how the respect of yoga, for example, there's a lot of people in my faith that will not do yoga because they're like, if you're doing X, Y, and Z, you don't know who you're bowing to and what you're going to bring in. Whereas some other people in my faith are like, but it's a good energy. And
And
so,
same with my faith. I'm
yeah.
certified. Did you know I'm certified to teach yoga, 200 hours certified? Yeah.
Oh, so, and I see
And
the
I do it with a God focus. Like, I
yeah,
don't do it with the Middle Eastern focus. I do it with my own faith
yeah.
journey.
And I told somebody, like, doing yoga for me, one, it's healthy. And because we are westernized, that is something that's from a different faith of conversation. And they're saying different things that we don't understand. I don't want to be disrespectful to that element, but the alignment of my hips and my shoulders and all the things, I love, yeah,
And
bringing in that
making
prayer
that
focus.
prayer center and
Yeah,
that
and
focus.
the one thing that they say, the light in me sees the light in
Yeah,
you.
that's what namaste means. I mean,
Yeah.
we can that's a perfect interfaith example. And I love, before we go on, and because I know our time is coming close, my daughter is currently serving an LDS mission in
Mm.
San Diego at the Mormon Battalion Historic Site.
Oh,
And she's
wow.
so happy because she gets to do Day of the Dead in San Diego, which it's very big there. And
That's
so,
huge
and then,
there.
yeah, and then she's going to Knoxville, Tennessee for a year to do a proselyting mission. So she gets to have the South and the Bible Belt. And she's like, I'm so happy I get to stay in San Diego until after the Day of the Dead,
Yes.
because within our faith, our ancestry, our genealogy, our those that came before us is so much a part of our faith. And I love Utah, I think, is doing a better job of embracing culturally that diversity. And so thank you for
Yeah.
bringing that up.
Yeah.
If you were to talk about, just in closing, what is one of the best ways in which you have been able to encounter God,
Mm.
and maybe what your favorite scripture? I know that's not a fair question to ask
Oh my
you,
goodness.
but because I do feel like you practice a very strong prayer practice, and I do feel like you inspire me because of your understanding of the Bible. But where do you find and encounter God the most? And then
Oh,
also maybe what your favorite scripture is.
okay. Um, oh man, mine honestly, and it's because I spend a lot of time there. I find that I encounter God in my car, right? I do love hiking and being in the creation that he has made when we're outside. That is my favorite place to go looking and appreciate him. But encountering him is in my car in the driver's seat when I'm listening to my music. I love listening to K Love to and from work, and my kids would be like, Mom, can we listen to this? And I'm like, nope, I need Jesus before I go to work, and I need to
Amen.
thank him before I come home. And I think in that radio constant reminder, and sometimes I'll go to my Spotify gospel list, is a constant reminder of him and or her, right? And so there's been times where I'll be sitting at a light just worshiping and praying, and then tears are coming down because of whatever I've encountered that day or I'm about to go into at home. That is definitely my spot in my car to encounter him. And I think I'm constantly just praying, because I was teaching my kids, like, we don't just pray for the food, right? It's a spontaneous thing,
Conversation, right?
conversation. And it's really important. Um, and so I think with that, like, my favorite Bible verse has been the constant since I probably was in college. And it is, oh my gosh, let us run the race with perseverance, which is, oh my gosh, I just drew a blank. Um, Run the race. It's Hebrews. Is it Hebrews? Therefore, yeah, Hebrews 12:1. Therefore, we are surrounded by a great cloud of witnesses. And let us also lay aside every weight and sin which clings so closely, and let us run the race with perseverance that is set before us. So
Mm.
12:1, and I think life is a race. They didn't say it's a sprint, right? It's this race that we've been put in, and the endurance and the perseverance that we need to have as we encounter all the things, um, are so important to have as we go through each day, because each day is you're met with different things.
I love that. And I do believe that the reason interfaith conversations and relationships matter is because it's a marathon. And I need
Yeah.
my faith friends, and I need the prayers that uniquely Michelle prays over me. I remember one of the most tender things in worshiping with your community on Sunday was the power of prayer that I felt in that worship service, and the prayer circles that just were all through the chapel
Yeah.
area. I came back feeling like, man, I need to bring all my Mormon friends on Sunday and have a good lesson on the power of prayer and praying over each other. It was such a beautiful, enriching experience for me to worship with your family
Thank
and with
you.
your community. It has stayed with me every Sunday almost. Like, I just think there's so much we can learn from each other. And I'm so
Yeah.
grateful that you have shared your faith with our audience today. Can you just give a closing thought on why faith is worth keeping? Because we've talked that a lot of the reasons why that I hope you and I are going to work together on All Faiths is that people of all faiths are struggling to feel the value of it and to feel supported in the world right now, that faith isn't cool anymore. And it's not cool to follow certain guidelines or keep certain commandments or be obedient or read your scriptures or have certain standards to keep your faith. Why? What would you say in closing? Is faith worth keeping?
Oh, faith is worth keeping because it's one of those things where it's like faith without works is dead. You can't do something and then not have a purpose or structure to it. Faith frames who we are, our values, our existence, our very hopes, our dreams, our love. Faith gives us a purpose to get up every morning. I feel like without faith, I would not have the ability to go on each day in those hard times. And it's so important that it's worth keeping so that you don't give up in despair. You're not going to be immune to the hard. You're not going to be immune to depression or anxiety, but knowing that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. My husband and I play this game whenever we do road trips with the kids. And then whenever we get to like a big long tunnel, we have to hold our breath till we get to the end, right? The one thing that keeps me trying to not give up is knowing that I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. I'm going to keep holding my breath. I'm going to keep holding my breath because I can release. And that release, that oxygen is faith.
Yes.
That's what it is.
Perfect. I love you, friend. I'm
I
so
love you.
grateful.
This is so great that you're doing this. I
Oh,
can't wait
and
to
listen,
see it
I'm
grow.
so we could do 90 other episodes because, like,
Yeah.
raising kids and
Oh,
navigating marriage and all the things, but I've told you this before. I'm so glad God was like, "You know what? I'm going to make sure you're on earth when Michelle Love Day is on the planet.
Same for you, GANEL-LYN, Condi. I'm so grateful that we met and through a mutual friend, and it's just been
I know.
wonderful.
Shout out to Shelly for bringing us together all those years ago. And you know what? I just feel so, I don't know when Jesus is going to come again, but I do know that these conversations matter. They
Yeah,
matter for an education. We're both educators. And as a teacher, I just feel like when we understand other people's faith from an educational lens, we can show respect. I told you earlier, the reason I'm doing this work is because it's not about converting anyone to how I believe. It's about really
yeah,
honoring and learning about each other's faith so we can help keep faith together. I
yeah,
need the diversity that I find in the world, and I feel like God shows up in that diversity.
that's right.
So thank you, friend, for blessing our audience today. How can people connect with you if they want to support your nonprofit, if they want to learn more
Yeah.
about the magic of Michelle Loveday?
Oh my goodness. I would love the support. So, Rise Virtual Academy is on Instagram and Facebook, and you can find us there for Rise Virtual Academy. And then for my Instagram, where I do my consulting, is m.love_day consulting. So just mloveday consulting, and you'll find me.
Because
Yeah.
Instagram doesn't like hyphens, and I got a hyphen in
I
my name. So,
know. I'm gonna have to do the underscore instead, but I'd love to connect and keep its faith, and then you'll be able to see how I keep the faith. And
yes.
what I say is the light in my leadership.
I love it. I
Yeah.
love it. I love you,
So
friend. Thank you
love
so
you.
much.
Thank you. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay.